How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, well, so in today's episode, I thought I'd try to say something about the difference between a job and a vocation, making reference to two very different thinkers, namely St. Paul and Nietzsche. I don't know, it seems to me to be a truly important distinction, one that can potentially make all the difference in our lives. Okay, well, vocation. So, what is it exactly? Well, it's probably a good idea, as with most things, to go back to beginnings. So, in its very genesis, it seems that the word vocation had an essential spiritual meaning. That's to say, if we go to the earliest use of that term, we see that it actually had a religious beginning. More specifically, we see it used in early Christianity. It's used by St. Paul to indicate something like God's calling or bidding or voice. And to be more precise, its meaning was something like this. It's that a person had a vocation if they were inspired by God to show their gifts and talents in the service of the common good. In other words, to be assigned a vocation was something like to heed a divine calling to use one's own unique gifts as an individual to ultimately manifest a higher social and spiritual purpose. So in its earliest use then, vocation is tied to performing work that involves both individual talent or uniqueness and to a broader social function or purpose. And actually, this characterization of vocation stays pretty much the same throughout the ages, even in what became its secular or non-religious form. The philosopher John Dewey, for example, writing nearly 2,000 years later in 1916, says that to be called to a personal vocation is to do work that is congenial to one's unique aptitudes and so rewarding to oneself, but also that the consequences of what one does, those are beneficial to others. So vocation then is work, but here's the thing, it's a special kind of work. It's not what often passes for work today, I'd say. Today, it's mostly about a job and a career, isn't it? Where the aim, for the most part, is profit over purpose and consumption and getting ahead, with little priority on the promotion of the common good. It has little to do with moving in a direction true to oneself, little to do with fostering both personal meaning and relationships with others, and to live according to an overarching purpose. Maybe another way of thinking about all of this difference between a job and a vocation, is that while a job can often be divorced from who we really are, a vocation is in alignment with our values and ethical principles, and so we're tied to it existentially. In other words, there's no real distinct space between our vocation and the rest of our lives and our identity and our personal destiny. Life, character, and vocation are one in the deepest sense. Now, can we really say that about a job or a career? And remember, I'm using these words in distinction to vocation. Is our career our life? How does spending 30 years doing something largely for extrinsic reasons, if that's what we're doing, how is that helping to answer the questions like, who am I? What can I do to make the world a little bit better? And how do I want to make best use of this very short life that I'm granted? Now, in all of this, I do want to give a quick qualification. I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not dismissing the reality of putting food on the table. There are necessities, and of course, they take priority. Okay, well, anyway, so you know sometimes where I go when I think of personal vocation. I go to the German philosopher Nietzsche. And in particular, I go to what he has to say in one of his earliest works called Schopenhauer as Educator. You see, there he talks a lot about how important it is to find out what your personal calling is. I mean, it's so easy, he says, to just capitulate and follow others, right? Shackled as we are by popular opinion about what we should do in our life and so on. But we have to resist such easy desires, he says, because they're not indicative of who we really are. Well, then, who are we? And how do we figure that out exactly? Well, here's his answer. And because it's impossible to outdo Nietzsche in language, I'll just quote him here. This is what he says. He says, "What have you truly loved thus far? What has uplifted your soul? What has dominated and delighted it at the same time? Now, assemble these revered objects in a row before you, and maybe they will reveal a law by their nature and their order, the fundamental law of your very self." Okay, what does that mean? Well, in other words, look closely at your life through time, and amidst all the clutter and noise and conformity, see what has given you the greatest moments of inspiration and place them all together and look for something like the common thread between them. Well, that thread, that's a golden thread that you should follow and cultivate, because at the end of it is you and your liberation. This is getting to your root, so to speak, to the root of a plant that's been covered in weeds. Now, that's the call that you should be heeding. A voice that comes from deep within, not from outside of you. As Nietzsche says, to heed this call is waking up to oneself out of the anesthesia in which we're commonly enshrouded as if in a gloomy cloud. Well, maybe then, if we follow St. Paul and Nietzsche's counsel here, we might begin to see our work differently. I don't know, maybe we'll find some jobs too tiny for our newly found spirit to fit inside of. Maybe we'll realize, like Vincent van Gogh did, that we have a great fire in our soul that could warm so many other people. Maybe we can make a living out of what we love and love the living at the very same time. So let's listen for that calling, for that voice that promises to transform what we wake up to in the mornings. A horizon not of the mundane, but of the meaningful. Bye for now.